Yo, what is up, guys? Moxsy here with another Borderlands 3 video, and today we are recording another episode of my Moxsy's Bar podcast, the podcast that I do every Sunday live on you guys live on Twitch. We record it and post it the next day for YouTube. Today we do not have a guest. I've reached out to some Borderlands content creators. Some of them want to do it, some of them don't, some of them postponed. Hopefully we will get some more content creators on the podcast for you guys, but today we do not. Today we are talking about the scaling changes. We're going to be talking about the nerfs and buffs to the characters. Mainly buffs. That are the anointment changes. We're going to be talking about the farming frenzy. We're going to be talking about matchmaking in Borderlands and whatever happened to the whole matchmaking system, and we're going to be talking about Mayhem 4. Decent amount of topics. The chat likes to say hello to YouTube. Good job, chat. So if you guys didn't know, the hotfix on January 16th applied. One second, let me get Claptrap out of here. The hotfix on January 16th finally brought the scaling event for the takedown. The scaling event runs from the 16th to 30th, and during this time, the takedown is scaled to the number of players. Now, this was something I was really excited for, but also a little hesitant about, just because I'm scared that this change will stick forever. We're going to be talking more about the scaling and the farming, but before we do that, I do want to talk about these changes. So we got our first nerf. First nerf was to the ion cannon. We all knew this was going to happen. It was really powerful, and thankfully they did not change the actual power of the ion cannon. The ion cannon still hits really hard. It just fires a lot of ammo now and has a really slow reload time. It's a change I'm fine with, honestly. The ion cannon was kind of ridiculous, and the fact that you could spam so many shots with it was kind of ridiculous. So I obviously don't like when things get nerfed, but in terms of the nerfs and like what deserved nerfs and what didn't, I think this is a fine one. There are a lot of ways in the game to get ammo back, a lot of ways to get rocket launcher ammo back besides just actually buying rocket launcher ammo. So it is a nerf, but it doesn't affect the weapon too much, so I am fine with that. Next, we have our anointment changes. Now, I have been in multiple podcasts before this hoping for new Mo's anointments, because it doesn't, her anointments on action skill end don't work as well as the on action skill ends that work for like Amara and work for Flak. I think Amara's abuse of on action skill end anointments is ridiculous, and that's part of the reason why she is so powerful right now. We didn't get any like new anointments for Mo's, but her anointments that were there did get ramped up. We got bonus magazine incendiary damage. This is the one that I'm really excited for. The next two mags will have 125 bonus incendiary damage. I am working on a build with this now. I don't know when I'll be finished with it, but maybe it should be up in the same time frame as this video. We got Iron Bear. After exiting by Iron Bear, you get 160 increased splash damage. These are amazing changes. I'm really, really happy with these changes. It doesn't solve the issue of Mo's having to spam Iron Bear and like the whole animation that can get really annoying, but it is now like really, really worth it to hop in Iron Bear and just get those anointments. It is still kind of a pain to actually do it, but her anointments are now on par with everyone else's anointments, at least in my opinion. Obviously she doesn't have like a 300 phase slam thing, but she's getting there. Next, we have the Zane changes. The wall barrier is active. Critical damage is increased by 70%, and while Sentinel's active. These are great action skills because these are active action skills. While Sentinel is active, while Barrier is active, these are the best action skills for Zane because with this current meta with his Seeing Dead, your action skills never go down. So these you could basically consider permanent buffs. Critical hit damage increased by 70% is really, really good. I think it's underestimatedly really good. It is an anointment that I never really messed around with, but I am planning on playing with it because having plus 70% critical hit damage at all times can be really, really crazy. This next one is just ridiculous, though. While Sentinel is active, gain 100% from 50% of damage as bonus cryo damage. Zane didn't need this, you know? I'm going to be honest with you guys, with the Seeing Dead comp, he actually did not need this change. The 50% was fine. Now it's ridiculous. I'd be a little surprised if it stayed at 100%. This 100% bonus cryo is really, really nice to have up all the time. I don't think it's not too ridiculous, but it is awesome. It is really cool. And then Flak didn't get much touching. He got both Moz and him got Nova damage. So I do want to play around with some like Nova shield kind of things, see how much Ash will Nova damage, because on like the Nova burner it's like 20k damage. So I want to play around with some of that. Haven't got to that yet. And then after using Rack Attack, gain 50% critical hit damage for a short time. That is cool, but I still don't think that's better than 100% damage taken or 100% action skill. So that's good, but I don't know if that's better yet. I haven't played with that one yet. A lot of new changes, a lot of things I haven't played about with, but I am planning on working my way down this list and making builds with these new improved anointments. With that, we can segue into the takedown scaling and the farming frenzy. One thing I want to say before we leave these anointments, though, is I still think boosting these anointments is nice, but I do think we need some rework of how the anointments work, especially for Moz with her Iron Bear, and especially for Flak. Some more creative anointments would be really, really cool. Flak and Moz both are hindered right now. I think they're at the bottom two. I think we could all agree that, I think most people would agree that Flak and Moz in terms of like in the hierarchy right now are the bottom two. And that is mainly because of their availability to lifesteal. Both of them are very limited in their survivability and their options for survivability, which limit their build diversities. And I think that could be easily improved with anointments, could be easily improved with class mods. Now there is the lifesteal anointment. I just made a build with Flak using that, and it is really nice, but it is kind of annoying to only be able to survive on Mayhem 4 using lifesteal anointments. With that, let's get into the takedown scaling. So the takedown scaling, if you haven't tried it yet, if you were struggling with the takedown, now I've heard that a lot of people are still struggling with it on single player difficulty. I understand that. It is still a hard fight. If you are not geared properly and you're playing on Mayhem 4, you can have difficulty with this. If you are geared properly, though, to be honest with you, you shouldn't have too much of an issue. I understand if you aren't, but if you're rocking a good build and have good gear, the Mayhem 4 takedown on single player should not be too much of a challenge for you. Now, I heard some other content creators basically saying that this may be a permanent change, that if this stays in the game, that there is potential that it could last. Now, I hope this doesn't happen. Honestly, if my current issue, I know I am at an elevated spot in that this is now my living and I play this game a lot more than your average player, like way more than your average player, but I don't think having hard activities in the game and having challenging and rewarding activities is a hindrance to players that can't do it yet. If you can't do the takedown on Mayhem 4, don't do it on Mayhem 4. Do it on Mayhem 3. Do it on Mayhem 2. Do it on Mayhem 1. That's why those difficulties are there, because they are easier. I don't think that having the takedown be scaled to single player difficulty when doing it on single player makes that much sense in the long term, because when the takedown initially came out, in the initial reveal, when they really talked about it, they said that they were like, there may be some people that can solo it, but we are not planning for people to solo it. It is a takedown challenge where 4 people will have a struggle through it, and it is going to be really hard to solo. Now, I understand that the scaling down of this is really great, and the increased spawn rates of the gear is great for this Farming Frenzy event. Honestly, the spawn rates for the takedown exclusive loot were extremely low for the amount of time that it takes to go through the takedown, to get a group to farm the takedown. So the changes to the loot drops and the pool are really great. Now, the fact that the takedown scales to the amount of players that you have is cool, because you can still do it with 4 players and still have an entertaining time and still be challenged. That is awesome. I'm going to talk about matchmaking in a second, but I think it would be great if we could just have a toggle, and have kind of like how Mayhem 4 works, where you have a toggle where if you want to do it on solo difficulty and run it fairly easily, you totally can, but you're going to get less loot, less chance for anointed drops, kind of how Mayhem 1 through 4 works. Right now, I'm really hoping that they take what they did with Mayhem 4 and just have Mayhem 4 modifiers for all of the Mayhem levels, and then keep the health scaling. The health scaling for Mayhem 4 is high, but at this point, we are figuring out how to deal with it very easily. I think that it would be really cool to apply the modifiers right now, because honestly, I would rather play, like, if I'm trying to do something, I'd rather do it on Mayhem 4 than Mayhem 3, just because Mayhem 3 modifiers are horrible, Mayhem 2 modifiers are okay, and Mayhem 1 modifiers are fine, but I really do think that the system of Mayhem 4 should be applied to other modifiers. Those would make the other modes more playable. Right now, there's Mayhem 4 exclusive drops and Mayhem 4 exclusive rewards that you have to be on Mayhem 4 for, which I understand pushing people into the higher difficulties, but it is difficult, and the people that are stuck on Mayhem 3 are still stuck with this crappy old system, so I do hope that it gets changes. We still have the Mayhem 2.0 overhaul, which I don't know if they said when it's dropping, but they are doing a rework of the Mayhem system. That's what they said. I hope that rework isn't just changing the lower levels. I hope it is a change of the whole system, and we get more fun modifiers that impact our runs and gameplay rather than passive bonuses and minuses, because passive bonuses and minuses aren't fun gameplay mechanics. The core issue of, in my opinion, of the takedown, and one of the big frustrations with it, is that when it released, it was very difficult to solo. You had to have really good gear and really good build to solo it. A lot of people play this game solo. That is why nothing's restricted to multiple players. A lot of people play this game solo. I play this game primarily solo. But in order for this event, it was really hard, and a lot of people had to matchmake. Now, the matchmaking in this game, I don't want to be too critical, but I will speak my mind. It is just not good. I think the Borderlands 2 matchmaking was better, and that's saying something, because the Borderlands 2 matchmaking was not great, but at least you could pull up a list of people's names, see how many were in their party, see what mission they were doing, and decide to join them. The fact that you can only, like for Slaughter Shaft, if you want to queue Slaughter Shaft, you have a random chance of joining Slaughter Shaft. That makes no sense to me. There are sites and sources that you can use, like my Discord or other people's Discords or Reddits, where you're looking for a group, but in a game like this that is so awesome to play with other people, if your console doesn't break or lag when you're doing it, it is really fun to be able to get into those games, get into those lobbies, and the system needs to be better if the difficulty for Mayhem 4 is going to stay the way that it was, or stay difficult, just because I do think that a lot of people got frustrated with the takedown and its difficulty was that looking for groups was a pain. Anytime someone died, they would leave immediately, and the whole thing was just kind of a mess. I do hope that the takedown goes back to its formal difficulty, because it is currently the only real challenge in the game, because the DLC didn't have any real challenge in it. Now, they did say in this patch notes that they were looking at the bosses in the Handsome Jackpot provided players with a satisfying challenge. What this means, we don't know, but we'll be monitoring these bosses and make adjustments as needed in the future. I think that's great. I don't think that these story bosses, like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I killed Freddy before I even looked at him. I don't think that these bosses need to be like that much harder. Like, a little bit harder would be great, but just an end game boss, like something to do at the end, is what people were missing. That's what I was missing. I had a lot of fun playing through the DLC, but when I realized that there was no invincible boss, there was no end game, and I just had to go back to the takedown to try any of my new weapons, I felt sad. When I got all of my new stuff from the DLC, and I got all of my class spawns, and I got all my guns from the DLC, I wanted to go use it on the DLC and see how I could improve, and there wasn't anything really that was worth fighting or giving me enough challenge. So I do think that changing the difficulties of some of these bosses is headed in the right direction, but it is not solving the problem of we need more endgame. Now. The next thing to talk about is this farming frenzy that is going on. A super, super awesome event that is happening in Borderlands 3 right now. It is, in my opinion, a breath of fresh air and a really, really fun time to be playing Borderlands 3, because rare spawns are guaranteed spawns, anointed drop rates, the drop rates are higher. It feels like right now, if you wanted to play the game and you said, hey, I want to get this item with this anointment, it is now feasible. Now, dedicated drops by no means are perfect. They're no means fixed, but this is definitely, in my opinion, a step in the right direction. Now, in the current meta of the game, it's not about getting the item you want, it's about getting the item you want with the right anointment, which adds even more farming into anything you're going to do, because it just increases your RNG of getting what you actually want. But being able to actually kill enemies and seeing their dedicated drop or dedicated loot drop from them is great. Obviously, it is not perfect. There are some still spots where it is hard to get your dedicated loot. But all in all, I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't think that rare spawns... There's a difference between loading into the game over and over again on repeat and checking if El Dragon spawned or not. There's a difference between that kind of fun of like rare spawns, where the whole farming is just saving and quitting and checking to see if the enemy spawns, and that was for farming any rare spawn, was just running, checking, saving, and quitting. Finally, after 15 checks, he finally spawns and then doesn't drop anything. It was crushing and wasn't a fun gameplay mechanic. Now, Borderlands has a mechanic in it that we all, if you played Borderlands 2, we all know and love, and that is enemy levolutions, or enemy evolutions. It was how we got Vermivorous to spawn in Borderlands 2. I'm forgetting the name of the enemy that spawned that dropped the Twister. Maybe chat will help me out. But those enemy evolutions to evolve an enemy that you had a chance of getting, and then them dropping some super, super cool loot and some super cool gear, is what I think rare spawn should be in this game. The fact that we don't have that is disappointing, but if there was an enemy who always spawned, let's say it's El Dragon Jr., he's always there, and every time you kill him, you has a chance to drop his relic, right? But if you led him to other enemies and did the whole level up thing like you did with Vermivorous or the Witch Doctor, or it was Ak. Um, and if you leveled him up and you went from El Dragon Jr. to Super El Dragon Jr. to Super Badass El Dragon Jr. to Ultimate Badass El Dragon Jr. and then transformed into like a dragon, like a literal dragon, and then had a chance to drop like a crazy item that like no matter what it is, it'll always come with some anointment. That is cool. That is so much fun. That's what I want rare spawns to be. Loading in, saving, and quitting every single time to me doesn't make sense, because I said this before, but we're not playing Pokemon. Like, we're not hunting some shiny thing that is like crazy when it spawns. The enemy has to spawn because we need to kill it, and saving and quitting for 3 hours and only killing an enemy 20 times out of the 3 hours that you did that is not a fun gameplay mechanic. So I hope that the rare spawns are now guaranteed spawns, and that I hope that they do something like that, because farming Vermivorous with friends was some of my favorite things to do with friends. Farming Vermivorous, because it was exciting, it was chaotic, it was crazy, and it was really hard to take down Vermivorous. It was a super hard challenge, and that enemy levolution does happen in this game. There are enemies that do level up, but it isn't to the same like satisfaction or even reward for doing it as you could do at Borderlands 2. So in my opinion, that's the direction that rare spawns should go. Obviously, who knows if that'll ever happen, but that would be super awesome. I don't remember if you had to have multiple people in your party to spawn Vermivorous. I don't remember exactly how that worked, but I remember always doing it with multiple people. So that is my opinion. In terms of dedicated drops on the rare spawns, it is nice that we can actually now say, hey, if you want to go farm this enemy, your best chance is to go farm this enemy. Like, if you want this pistol, go farm its dedicated source. Before that, if you wanted the recursion, you shouldn't farm the dedicated source because your chances of getting it were so low. I would be really, really excited if they did something like this, where they did like an event like this all the time and gave us great loot drops, like maybe every once a month for like a few days or like a weekend would be really cool. But that the base drop rate and the base rate of anointments in Mayhem 4 should scale up to basically this, and then from this have special weekends where your chances of getting like anointed, like how cool would it be if we had like just like an anointed weekend where like every weapon that dropped would be anointed. Obviously that would crowd the loot pools and make things, everyone would probably get too good gear too quickly, and you have to afford for power creep. But I do think that they are headed in the right direction with this event. I think it is going to kind of suck to go back after this event is over to our old drop rates and our if the rare spawns are spawning at the same rate. I was able to finally get my Masterwork crossbow. If you guys don't know the Masterwork crossbow, it dropped from Ulrith Mick I think. He had like a 10% spawn rate and a tiny drop rate for the Masterwork crossbow. I was able to farm for one with the exact anointment that I wanted, which felt super awesome. That isn't a weapon that should be so crazy rare to get and so frustrating to get. So I was happy that was able to happen, and really excited that this event is going on. I will be coming out with a video hopefully very shortly, if not before this video, of my guide to what you should be farming for this event. I know I'm a little late on that, but I do want to give my opinions on what you guys should be farming, where you guys should be going during this event, because it is hopefully not now or never, but not now or ever, but now is the time, if you were looking for a specific piece of gear, to go get it. lastly, lastly, I think the biggest thing for this game, so the Steam release is coming, and the Steam release I hope is huge for this game. I hope it really blows up when the Steam release comes out. I'm hoping that the game has a solid amount of end game when it comes out. I hope that all the drop rates are fixed, and the biggest thing I'm hoping for, which I think will help this game blow up, and one of the things I'm looking forward to the most is crossplay. I think crossplay would do a lot for this game. I think crossplay where you could send mail across platforms would do a lot for this game. I think that if we get crossplay, hopefully we get an advanced system of matchmaking where you can change your matchmaking and settings and really like tailor who you want to join, what you want to be doing. There's so much opportunity for this game to be a super awesome multiplayer co-op experience. Unfortunately, some optimization issues and some matchmaking issues are restricting that. And once again, when my first Borderlands experience was playing with my sister and playing with friends and doing the split screen was hindered at launch, and a lot of things have hindered this game's playability with other friends. It's gotten a lot better over time, but that is something that I'm really looking forward to, is the improvement of the matchmaking and your ability to play with others, as well as the optimization across PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Things have gotten a lot better since launch, but they're nowhere near perfect. Xbox One X users, PlayStation 4 users still crashing all the time, and in order for us to have a smoother experience, we need that stuff, man. We really do need that stuff. It was a much shorter podcast today. I just wanted to get my point across on these new things. If you guys have any questions, make sure to drop them in the section right now. That is it for my little monologue on the new changes and the patch notes. We will be streaming after this, so don't go anywhere. The podcast is ending, but we're going to be working on our Mo's build today, so don't go anywhere. If you do have any questions or have anything that you want to ask me about, make sure to drop that now. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Any questions? We're going to check the Moxsy's bar section, see if anyone had any questions in there. I forgot to ask the thing. This is a good question by Wolf. Wolf asked, if you were the head of development for Gearbox, what would you prioritize your team to work on to bring the player base back? That's a really cool question. What would I prioritize my team to work on to bring the player base back? I mean, there's a plethora of things that we need, in my opinion. Cross-platform play would be huge, and more endgame content would be huge. I think content right now is one of the biggest things, and new content, new takedowns, new endgame, new challenges, new enemies, new areas. Obviously, that's like, I just want new stuff, but really, like, you have some of the biggest names in this game not playing this game anymore and going to other things, literally because there is a lack of content. So that is what I would be doing. You think character buffs over content? I don't think it would be that hard. I think with new content you could add new anointments, like add a new takedown and add a new class mod to it, add new stuff to it that'll help those characters do the new takedown or do the new raid boss once you get it. Like, add a takedown that's really hard, right? But have a piece of gear in it that once you complete it, if you get this piece of gear, it'll help you. That's how like Destiny raids work. Like there was raid gear that helped you do the raid. What if like there was raids, there was like in Borderlands 2 we had those sets. We had those like I forget what they're called, like the peak sets or whatever, that basically if you were matching this gear and this grenade and using them, you would get like a bonus while you were in a certain area that helped you progress. I think stuff like that in Borderlands could be really, really cool. Like, yeah, the event was really hard, but if you get this piece of gear, yeah, like the effervescence and stuff like that, had some cool like combos that if you put the two items together, you would get something that helped you do like Digistruct Peak. Something that if you farmed for it, like a piece of gear that did like bonus damage in the takedown, or a piece of gear that gave Flak lifesteal in this new takedown. Something like that could really help those characters out, but make it challenging for them to do it on their first try. But once they got their gear and their farm, that it would make it a lot easier for them. Sindel Sired says that they need to fix some gear that doesn't work properly, the shooting star shield, for example. Yeah, there's a lot of gear and interactions that still need fixing. Skills that still need fixing. A lot of things like that. Hopefully, those things will be fixed. Zane's distributed denial is the first thing that comes to mind. But once you got the cops on you, yeah, I guess so. Mecha, if they add new skill trees, what skill tree would you want? For Amara, I want a cryo tree. For that's the only one I've really thought about was Amara. I think Flak would be really cool with like a melee tree, dude. A melee tree for Flak would be awesome. Or if they change snipers, like a sniper tree for Flak. I think melee Flak would be pretty cool, though. I've always wanted to do a melee Flak build. For Zane, give Amara cryo and phase walk. Phase walk, or let her have 8 weapons equipped all at the same time and use them all at the same time, and you will have Ocho Zerker. Mose needs a non-Iron Bear action skill tree. That's what I've thought about. But how would they implement a non-Iron Bear skill tree if you spec into the other trees? It would just mean that everyone would always have to go into the non-Iron Bear skill tree. There could be like maybe if the skill tree augmented the Iron Bear, so instead of like actually having the Iron Bear, it gave it something for the Iron Bear that basically converted it maybe into like a turret or like a death trap thing. Curzo asks, Moxsy, do you think something like holding down action skill on Mose to bring Iron Bear down from the sky, like the game Titanfall, could have good quality of life change for action skill and anointments on Mose, so not to be forced to enter the mech? Yes, I've talked about this a few times. You should be able to hold down the button or press the button when you call in the Iron Bear to decide if you want to get into it or not. That would make the most sense. And just proc on action skill and anointments when the Iron Bear lands. That would also be really cool if you could do damage to enemies that the Iron Bear landed on and just like splat them. That would be really, really cool. If you were in the stream team, what would you do? I would do a lot of damage. Try daily. Lots of damage all the time. If they add a character for the DLC, who would you like to play as? You mean as like a current character? I don't know. That's a good question. I've always wanted to play as Mr. Torek, dude, but that's just me. Mr. Torek or Tiny Tina. I was thinking it'd be really cool to get like a Mr. Torek, Tiny Tina character like combined, where you had like Mr. Torek on top, or like Tiny Tina riding like, I mean she's like grown up now, but like Tiny Tina on Mr. Torek's back, and they're both doing like explosive damage with rocket launchers or something like that. Sounds good to me. If they made another tree, what would be a cool gadget? Um, something that's more active. I would love an active action skill on Zane. You know how like on Zane, like his action skills are pretty like passive. So like on Zane right now, he has barrier, which is passive. He has drone, which is passive, and he has clone, which is passive. I would love to have an action skill on Zane that like does damage to enemies that I can like use. Like, I mean, this isn't like gadget, but like you know how Zero had kunai, like something like that where it's like kind of gadgety that you could like toss or something that would do damage and have some effect that you could change and work. Something that would be active, not like a passive thing like a turret. I hope we don't get another passive thing. A turret on Zane would be cool, but I think it would be cool to have some active action skills that you could just use and like proc action skill and stuff like that. I would really like a skill on Zane that would do damage. Yet that too. Do you think they'll bring back some guns for Borderlands 2? Jackson says, do you think they'll bring back some guns for Borderlands 2 and do reworks on them? Will a gun for Borderlands 2 come back and be actually useful? Like, for example, the concept called Bang, and it's not horrible, but not almost anyone uses it. I'm for sure positive that they're going to bring back Borderlands 2 weapons because it is just nostalgia and those are the weapons we grew up with and we know and love. I would be really surprised if we didn't get more Borderlands 2 weapons. I hope some weapons and gear stay in Borderlands 2 and don't come back. We don't need the B-Shield. We don't need a Grog Nozzle. I do like the Sandhawk, the Norfleet, and the Deepa, but we do not need some of the things in Borderlands 2 that broke that game. We definitely don't need them to come back. The only thing that worries me, dude, is a lot of the guns in Borderlands 2 that came to Borderlands 3 ended up kind of being trashed. Like, and it kind of makes me sad, but like a lot of my favorite guns in Borderlands 2 are now booty in Borderlands 3. Like, I'm weird, dude. I really like the Sawbar in Borderlands 2, and it is terrible in Borderlands 3. I really like the Hellfire. It's terrible in Borderlands 3. Some weapons did come back, and some weapons are awesome. The Becca is a really great one, and some things like the Infinity in Borderlands 2 was so cool, and I kind of hated in Borderlands 3. It just lost its feel, which is weird. A Zane laser would be cool. Magic missile. We don't need the magic missile because we don't need slag. I would like to see more cool uniques. I love making builds with uniques, and the amount of unique weapons that we have that are really good. I made a build with the Shrieking Devil. There are some other good uniques out there, but uniques were huge in Borderlands 2, and they don't play as much of a part in Borderlands 3. A lot of that is because a lot of the good uniques became legendaries in Borderlands 3, so their like availability of uniques is definitely decreased, but I really do hope that we get some cool blues and some cool uniques because, god damn, dude, I loved some of the uniques in Borderlands 2. Also, hope we get some new rarities. Jake Kuzer, what would I do to buff Mose and change Zane's reliance on seeing dead? I would give Mose something that gave her lifesteal on splash damage. Maybe a class mod or a comm that gave Mose some sort of percentage based splash damage lifesteal so that she wouldn't have to be. I would love to make a Mose build where you don't have to constantly spam grenades or chuck meteors at your feet. So if you could, she's supposed to be the gun expert, you know, like she's the gun user. Give her the big chain guns, give her the big machine guns. And if we could couple like fire rate and damage and DPS output with some sort of splash damage lifesteal that isn't related to spamming grenades all over the screen, that would be really, really cool. the like we have two questions. If you could make any class, what would it be? And if you could have any relic, what would it be? And how powerful would it be? If I could have any relic, a relic that just gave some lifesteal would be nice, man. Here's the thing with lifesteal in the end game is Borderlands 2 had Moxsy weapons. We have Moxsy weapons. We don't need lifesteal anointments and things like that if Moxsy weapons actually work. The current state of Moxsy weapons is that they don't work that great and they don't heal you very much. Now, I do not want to have to be reliant on Moxsy weapons like we were in Borderlands 2. Mara is one of my favorite characters because she has so much lifesteal. She has so many health regen skills. She has so many damage reduction skills that she is not reliant on anything besides her weapons to heal. You do not need to throw grenades. All you have to do is shoot and use your action skills and you're Gucci. Now, I don't want to rely on Moxsy weapons, but if they're in the game, they should be more useful. Whoa, Moxsy and Moxsy sound similar? That is true. That is true. I never noticed that. Yeah, like a longer trigger held Mo's regens health would be cool, Tony Danza. Do you think we will get 7 years out of this game? I hope so. I hope so, Mr. Milk. I saw someone post this on Reddit, but I was thinking for a new flak tree, it would be really, really cool for a new flak tree if we got a thresher as a pet. That this isn't my idea. This was a Reddit post. But the guy basically was like, if we got a new flak tree, it'd be awesome if we got a like gravity surge thresher that like grouped all the bunch of enemies in and like went underground and like popped up at different enemy locations. That would be super, super cool. I do have a question about that actually. Why does lifesteal work well but percentage healing doesn't? Because percentage healing works. Samsara is a testament that percentage healing works, but it needs to be powerful enough. Flak, you get, if you put 5 out of 5 points into Flak's like first skill on his green tree on his left side, you get 1.5 health regen per second, which is in the end game literally nothing. That means absolutely nothing. 1.5 health regen per second. That is not going to help you in the tiniest little bit. So health regen skills work. They just need to be more powerful. If the health regen skills are more powerful, you can just play more carefully, and using Flak's fadeaway skill for the full duration can give you that full lifesteal. But if you're not in fadeaway and you're not doing things that'll give you health, you're kind of just screwed. Wig Splitter Spider asks, do you think grenades do enough damage? Seems like they're only used for anointments as tools. That is what I use grenades for, except for on Mo's. The cloning maddening tracker definitely does enough damage. It is unfortunate that some of the grenades that did the most damage have lost their identity. A fastball Mo's build would be really cool, but the fastball doesn't really do any damage. So yeah, it would be great if we got some tuning to the grenades, because right now they are way more utility based, and if the grenades did more damage, I think you could see a rise in Moses' hierarchy or like tier if you could do a lot of damage with grenades, and Mose has a lot of cool grenade skills, especially being able to crit with grenades. If those got changed, I could definitely see some crazy Mose kills happening with good grenades. Ombre Cool is talking about the stack bot. I thought we were going to see a fix to the stack bot. Honestly, I can't tell if the stack bot not working with dot damage is intended or not. I feel like it has to be not intentional, because stack bot shouldn't reset on dot damage. If you didn't know, stack bot, every time you dot an enemy with an elemental weapon, it resets your crit multiplier because dots can't crit. That's a little silly to me. It does kind of force you into using Cryo and Jacob's weapons, which is a cool playstyle on Fleck, but I don't think that was intentional. If the Stackbot class mod worked with elemental weapons, Fleck would be doing some really cool things. He's doing some really cool things right now. I'm pretty positive Fleck has the record right now in the Takedown Challenge. Fleck is absolutely, now that the scaling is weak and the enemies are weak, Flack is killing the takedown challenge, because right now the takedown isn't about surviving, it's about doing as much damage as possible, and Flack is really, really good at that. He's really talented at doing a lot of damage and just not getting hit. If an enemy sneezes on my M4, you might go down, but you do a lot of damage, so he is good for that. Unless you're using, I'll rephrase that. You can do some survivability on Fleck. He does have a lot of tools to survive, but he easily is the character who has to work the hardest for it and have the best gear to be able to do that. How much damage? A lot of damage. Does this week count for the community challenge for Takedown? Yes, this week does count. If you guys haven't, last thing I will say, we're gonna round up the podcast here. The Takedown challenge is happening. The prize pool is around $1,500. I haven't calculated. All of the donations I get taxed on. So if someone donates me $1,000, I only get like $970 in my bank account. So we have had a lot of money donated to me. I gotta figure out exactly how much I have for the Takedown, and we're gonna split that up between the winners. But we are having some Takedown responses that are coming out. This is my first time organizing a community event, so I apologize for some of the frustration and confusion that has arisen. Borderlands is a game filled with glitches, and I am unfortunately trying to limit all those glitches, which is difficult because even I didn't think of some glitches when I originally made the video, because there is so freaking many glitches and exploits in this game. If you need to ask me if you can use something because it's a glitch, most likely you shouldn't be using it. But I have updated the description of the YouTube video, which I'll keep updating. So if you are confused on what to do for the Takedown challenge, make sure to look at that YouTube description. The community event channel in the Discord will also be up to date as well. That will be it for the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. A little shorter one with some longer questions. I do this podcast every week on Sundays live on Twitch. Usually start the stream around 4. Usually get the podcast going around 5. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you are in the chat right now, do not go anywhere because we are continuing to stream right after this. But I wanted to do a podcast because figured out you guys like and enjoy these. So really happy to be doing them. It's always fun for me. With that, we are going to end the podcast. Say goodbye to YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any opinions of your own, please leave them down in the comment section. I like having a conversation with you guys about this stuff. I want to hear your guys' opinions, and I want to know what your guys' feelings are about these scaling changes, the anointment changes, matchmaking, and all that. Peace!